My mom used to tell me, she said, if you don't live your dream, you're just going to be living someone else's dream.
From Resilient Partners, this is the Resilient Insights Podcast. Every episode offers in-depth insights on the key debates and conversations shaping Washington and the world. From policy to leadership to the lighter side of life, we're your source for thoughtful discussions. So get ready to be informed, inspired, and engaged. Welcome to the Resilience Insights Podcast. I'm your guide on this journey, Joshua Baca, walking you through the intricate world of public policy, leadership, and the lighter side of life. On today's episode, we're going to have a conversation about the crucial role of state and local government affairs when it comes to shaping and driving outcomes in the public policy space. And I couldn't be more excited to have the man, the myth, the legend, Atlanta Braves superfan, a good friend, and a veteran of 30 plus years at the American Chemistry Council, where he led state government affairs and political mobilization. Rudy, congrats on your retirement and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Astro. And it's exciting to be here. And thank you for those. You did hit the highlights. I'm a big Braves friend, and obviously my ties to the University of Georgia are very, very deep. And we're looking forward to good things on both of those teams this year.
Well, that's some exciting stuff. If for those who don't know, Rudy is located in Atlanta and likes all things Atlanta, including the traffic. Is that correct?
I think the traffic in Atlanta is highly overrated. My wife thinks it's bad, but you just have to know the traffic patterns and when to go and when not to go. That's what I told her. I said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do it different time, and we're fine.
Well, that's some good stuff. Well, why don't we start off with some of the basics? First off, thank you for taking time to be on the show today. Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your career, your tenure leading state government affairs? Help our listeners learn a little bit more about yourself.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'll do it pretty quickly. I grew up down in South Georgia, out on the farm. My father was a state legislator. That kind of piqued my interest in politics. I did lose him at an early age, but that political bug kind of stuck with me, and went to University of Georgia and kind of focused on communications campaigns, things of that nature. I went to Washington, worked for a U.S. Senator for about, I don't know, 4 or 5 months before he got beat. And then I returned back home. I went to grad school and then joined the Georgia Farm Bureau to lead their legislative program. And so that's kind of where I really kind of cut my teeth. But that was mainly focused on just really direct lobbying, being at the Capitol every day and working on issues. But it gave me opportunities to kind of start an issue from the beginning, run it through the legislature, that type of thing. One of the crowning, I guess, achievements was getting constitutional amendment adopted by the legislature and then running that campaign. And that kind of sprang me from just, being the state lobbyist to being more of a campaign manager. So I did a short stint at Conan Ruff before joining what was called the American Plastics Council, and which became the American Chemistry Council. But so all along, direct lobbying, and then picked up skills like grassroots development, some media relations, coalition development. And so all that kind of wrapped into what kind of led me to being able to lead the American Chemistry Council, because that was certainly our approach. We had to have a kind of that full deal approach, that full surround or sound as you go into a public affairs campaign. And I think that's kind of where I am, and that's kind of what I like to do. Lobbying, the grassroots development, the coalition building. Now we got the digital advocacy that we kind of blend into everything. So that's kind of where I've been and how I got here.
You retired at the end of last year after an amazing career at the American Chemistry Council. How's retirement treating you?
Well, I'm probably not the only one that says that. I hate that word retirement because it just sounds like you're, about to go get a rocking chair and look, one is I don't feel like I'm retirement age. The calendar says I am. So I did make that step. I did want to free up some of my time to spend with the 4 grandkids we have now, and more time with my wife, more traveling on where I wanted to go and not where someone was telling me I had to go. But obviously, there's a lot of time in the day. And so I like to spend some of my time still doing the things that I do. I mean, obviously, when you've been working in this arena for this long, you develop really good relationships, you have networks, and you have capabilities, and that you just hate to walk away from. And so I'm trying to do a little bit of that. They kind of blend into it. I sit on a couple of corporate boards, and so I don't know. It's a blend of that, but I would never say I'm retired because it sounds like the next what comes after retirement, right? And I don't want to be there.
I do. I'm happy to switch chairs with you whenever that's appropriate.
No, no,
So
I'm saying the next step after retirement is you're done. So
you got a lot of life left in you, my friend. So
oh,
let's dive into the meat of this conversation, which is the importance of engaging at the state and local level and how it is important for driving policy outcomes. As I was prepping for this conversation with you, I was reminded about my very first job I had on Capitol Hill out of college, where my boss told me, even though we work in Washington, all politics is local. And that was 20 years ago. So, do you think all politics remains local? And why is it so important today to engage at the state and local level when it comes to driving policy outcomes?
well, I'll answer that rhetorically. I mean, if you looked at the latest headlines, what's going on in Washington? Nothing.
Nothing.
They're totally paralyzed. I mean, I don't know that anything major other than having to do what do we call it, a continuing resolution. It's kind of the only way things are done now in DC. And in the absence of that, the states are moving on. They're doing and they're setting the policies that regulate industry, and even driving the social policies. And so I think if you're a company or your organization and you're not keeping up with what's going on and engaged in the states, you're missing where the policy is being set. I mean, California could pass a law that becomes de facto national policy just
Yeah.
because of the marketplace. If they're putting limitations, I remember and we were very involved with this with a labeling requirement on cleaning products. And, that became the national standard. There was no reason, Maryland tried to do the same bill that developed next year. We're like, why? I mean, it's already done. And so, yeah, if you're taking your eyes off, or if you're not focusing on the states, I mean, you're missing the game, and you're really missing out on the political debate that potentially going to be changing your operations or the way you sell products.
You're a state level guy. You've worked on the ground most of your career. You think Washington is broken today?
Oh no, it's working perfectly. I mean, they every year they pass all their appropriations bills. It's Uh, the only thing that's going on in Washington, D.C., um, is with the lack of Congress being able to adopt policy, the administrations and the agencies are running that part of regulatory I mean, they're doing essentially their own legislation. In the absence of Congress doing something, the states have to act. And so, there's kind of like, it used to be, you're supposed to be the legislative branch, executive branch, judicial branch. Now it's, executive branch in states, and they're kind of balancing off of each other. I mean, the executive branch does something and then the states react either in full support or, nope, we're doing that differently here. So, what amazes me is, not only trade associations, and obviously a lot of them are headquartered in Washington, or companies, they'll have a Washington office, but what they're lacking is engagement with the states. So what are you doing in the states? Oh, we got a guy that he tracks all legislative policy. And I'm like, why are you doing that? I mean, you're just watching the train run, but you're not going there trying to direct them or affect where they're heading, or, trying to shape the policy. And that's where I think, you know, in both those, we worked at the American Chemistry Council together. That's what ACC was good at. They had one of the most defined state engagement programs of any of the national trade associations, and they did affect policy. We did initiate policy in states. We got policy adopted in states that start shaping, what the national standard is. And one of them that you and I worked on was getting states to recognize advanced plastics recycling.
Yep.
And I think now there's like 25 states that have policies in place that recognize that as a manufacturing process that allows them to have some certainty about how they're going to be regulated and allows them to grow and foster. You can't run a policy like that at federal government because you'll just never get something done. And so I think it's extremely important.
Let's talk a little bit more about that. We had a lot, you talk about the advanced plastics recycling work we did. We had a lot of shared successes and a lot of shared challenges working together. For you personally, beyond the advanced plastics recycling, what are some state level engagements you're most proud of that drove some significant policy changes or outcomes?
Oh gosh. I've been to, a lot of friends' offices and they'll have all these bill signing documents on the wall and pictures, get I just to me, collecting kind of the awards and stuff like that, memorabilia, trying to remember those things I I got, I was always what's next? But yes, there's been some very significant policies development. That one is in the area, which my I guess where I really kind of got started in having the full campaign experience was this constitutional amendment in Georgia back in the I guess about 1990. Major way that farmland was going to be valued for ad valorem tax purposes. It's going to save farmers and forestry owners like 200 million a year. Of course, that doesn't sound like much now, but then it was huge. But I got to really see how it was going to affect owners of property, and so that was one of my things I really look at. One of the opportunities we had at the American Consumer Council was helping advanced building codes. We wanted to have states adopt the highest level of energy building code because they needed the products we make, forms of foam insulation, things of that nature to achieve that. When we started that effort, there was hardly any states that were up to the highest level, and now it's almost every state has that is, and they do it every 3 years, kind of go through the process, and so we're very engaged in that. And it's one of the things that I like to say that I was part of advancing that cause. But there's been individual legislation all throughout the years where, someone, and a lot of times you'll find out some of the best policies are thought of at the local level.
Yeah.
You'll talk to a plant manager and say, I can't do this, but it sure would be easier. And so you quickly change that into legislative language. And that's what legislators do too. They hear from a constituent say, oh, this is something I want. And next day they're following the bill and they're running with it. And that's what's so fun about state politics is the fact that when legislators come into session at the beginning of the year, they file a bunch of bills and they actually act on them within the next 3, 4, 6 months. Then they go home. They don't let things linger around. They have hearings on them. They pass them or they defeat them.
They get
And
their stuff done.
that didn't happen in Washington.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about best practices. At Resilient Partners, we're guided by three principles. I like to say that resilience is the entry point to engaging in the policymaking process. You have to be proactive in shaping the policy process, and you have to focus on building trust in the policy process. What are some of the best practices that businesses looking to drive better outcomes in policymaking or influence outcomes locally should deploy?
Well, the first and most basic thing is be involved. The squeaky wheels are the ones that drive public policy, whether that's at a local level, state level, federal level. And it's amazing when you get even a small group of people together that can voice an opinion, how that affects public policy. So that's being involved, recognizing the engagement, and knowing the politicians. It's amazing. One time I was with a company and the headquartered in a state, and they needed something, and I said, "Well, don't you know the governor, right?" And they were like, "Well, no." And I'm like, "What do you mean you don't? I mean, you're a major employer in the state, and you don't know the governor. The governor, don't like, oh, well, no, we just didn't think that was important.
Mm.
It's important to be involved. The second thing is it's really important to know what you're trying to do. Um, And 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 that was one thing that I think we were good about at ACC is knowing the policy outcomes we were hoping to achieve. Without that roadmap and that guiding principle, I mean, you really don't know what you're doing. And so I think that is very important. If you don't have a solid plan, not a plan, but a policy, you're just going to watch the train go by, and you're not going to be able to shape it because you don't know what to do. And it's amazing how many times I talk to people yeah, I saw where these bills were going to be. This bill was introduced, and I'm watching it go through the process on my little legislative tracker, and then it becomes, it's going to the governor's office, governor's desk, and I'm like, well, did you affect that policy at all? Well, no, I just had a, and that was their thought of what government relations was, is just tracking something. If you want to be involved, you want to drive policy, you want to change the policy and, and have it, the ability to shape it, you got to be there on the ground. And now it's even, the engagement's even grown. Just having a lobbyist in the state capitol is not enough anymore. You've got to wrap that around with digital advocacy, digital awareness campaigns. And that's kind of what this little gig I got going now is doing, is, develop partnerships, people like you. Obviously I can help in the capital because of the contacts I have there, but being able to have that full shop around us. We've got a lot of allied partners to do that. And this day and age, it's very important.
So I'm hearing be involved, know your outcomes, and be prepared to surround your environment with surround sound advocacy. Is that correct?
I think you're right, but
Boom.
and all of that is important. I mean, the knowing the people, it's kind of like any other thing in life. I mean, you don't want to show up to a reception and not know anybody and just kind of stand there on the wall. You want to be able to converse. And the way you do that is build those relationships, because you never know when you need them. And I think that's one thing we lack is doing that, is making sure we know who the key policy people are and have relationships with them, and having the ability to go to them when we need to talk to them.
You make it all sound easy. You're a pro for obvious reasons. But from your perspective, what are some common pitfalls you see when you see companies or organizations or stakeholders trying to engage at the state and local level?
Well, one of the fallacies I see the most is they think it will get resolved in Washington.
Mm.
They hate the 50 state patchwork of different laws. Because I mean, it's true. I mean, even when you take kind of model bill, model language, and you take it from state to state to state, it gets tweaked a little bit, and so it means the end result seems sometimes is a little different. But you, most of their focus is on Washington. Go back to say our grants, like, we got up to 25 states in, I don't know, 3 to 4 years. Congress hadn't even really got that type of legislation introduced. And so, my federal counterparts, their goal was to get a bill introduced. Our goal was to get 5 or 7 bills adopted in a state. Where I see the pitfalls is really not appreciating what can be done in the states, and not being involved in the states. And there, in fact, are actually driving public policy. And
Amen.
it happens every day, every year, and unless Washington can ever fix their problem and start really legislating, states will continue to drive issues.
Yeah, and let's not forget the importance of governors in this process as well, too. They're with Congress broken, governors take on an increasingly important role. So what about advice? When I was breaking through 20 years ago in this space, a mentor told me, look, if you want to be successful in government affairs and public affairs and all of the things that we do, you really need to spend some time working on campaigns locally. You need to be on the ground. And, I took that advice and it helped my career blossom. What advice would you give to people? I give that advice to most people who ask me, what you should do. But what advice do you have for young professionals wanting a career in state government affairs or political mobilization?
Well, I think that's very good advice. As you know, that when I was with ACC, every semester I would bring in a UGA political science intern. And so they got to see some of it. And I think, and from there, they would say, what's my next step? And I said, your next step is go work in the state capitol, go work in a local campaign.
Yeah.
Those are tremendous experiences, because you've got to develop that network. And you may recall, if you look at the team that I left, there were 4 or 5 of them that were in what I would call the Romney group. They were all worked on the Romney campaign back whenever it was. And that was where they kind of got a lot of experience and they learned how to network. They learned how to build relationships. And I think that's key. It's key just to seeing how the things operate. Campaign work is good, but if you really want to be on the policy side, you also need some experience in a capital or in a congressional office. I really like the experience you get in the congressional office because you learn how to serve people. You might not get to watch the legislation as it appears in the textbook as you can do in the state capitol, but there's good experience too. Just you got to be out there. You got to have initiative. You got to be intentional. You got to do all those things that you hear about and you read about. You got to do it every day. And if not, you just become I, my mom used to tell me, she said, if you don't live your dream, you're just going to be living someone else's dream. And I keep thinking about it,
Amen.
because I'm a big dreamer. I mean, when I grew up, I dreamed about doing something. When I first got to the Washington office, a friend of mine came out and he said, Rudy, did you ever dream you would be here? You'd be looking out your office window and you would see the US Capitol. And I was like, when I was growing up on that little farm, poor as poor gets, all I had was dreams. And, you know, everyone has to, you got to dream big and you got to live your dreams. If you're not, you just living somebody else's dream.
It's funny you say that. We have so many things in common when it comes to that, about in regards to how we got our start in politics and our life circumstances. And, I think about those a lot of time. And it's that adversity that I think what is really important that makes you stronger. And, one of the follow-up questions I always get is like, well, what's the importance of working on a campaign on the ground and locally? I'm like, you get to see the adversity firsthand. You get to see the shift in voters' opinions. You get to see the shift in the mood on the ground. I'm like, no headquarters office is going to show you that firsthand. And you're the first one to feel that adversity. And what you do when you feel that adversity is what really matters. And so I think that's to me, it's still the best advice that I've ever gotten. So you're on to something new and more entertaining now. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this little entrepreneurial venture you got going on and what you're doing with your spare time now?
It's called Stratcom Solutions, an official name, kind of goes short term, just Stratcom. The main thing is trying to counsel people and companies and organizations on the reason they should be involved in state affairs, how they can start there,
Amen.
why they need to be there, why it's a lot more than just tracking the legislation as it goes through. So that's number one. Second thing is doing some executive coaching. One of the things that I don't want to say I pride it myself, but I was very humbled by was the high performance work team that we had at ACC. Hopefully, I led some of that and caused that to happen. But so some of the people that work on that team is still there are just some of the top performers in the profession that I know of. So I've been working with people, kind of coaching them as to how can you be a better leader, servant leader, that people that you're going to be encouraging people. And the third is more that be a part of a group that is leading for kind of a campaign type of initiative where you're trying to get legislation introduced and working it through the process. I'm a little new on all this, obviously, only been involved in the company for the last 3 months, but I have a huge network of professionals that I can tap into. I've got some great alliances or partnerships with national firms that we can do amazing stuff. And then working with you. I mean, as I told you many times, I've never seen a person that can come up with a message that's appropriate so quickly. Because, if we would run these and try to come up with what's the proper way to say things, and you'd get that back and you're like, oh, I don't like that. Here's what we should do. And I'm like, dude, you did that in 10 minutes and we just spent, $20,000. Why did we do that? Because I've never seen anybody like yourself that can develop messaging that is so succinct so quickly. And so, yeah, that's part of hopefully what I can bring to people as I get more and more involved with my little company, I guess, so to speak.
The biggest singular challenge I have is my thoughts run faster than my hands can type and my words can come out of my mouth. But all that to be said, it seems to me like you're having a lot of fun doing this. Is that right?
I am, obviously, I've worked all my life preparing for this time in my life as far as, financially and stuff like that. So now I can kind of work on my terms a little bit. I can determine how big of a workload I'm going to have. Last week, I took grandsons to the batting cage, a couple hours for a couple of days. And, I want to have those, and that's really where I was, living my life right now. I lost my father at 14. I don't remember a lot of things he told me, but I remember what he did. And I remember how he made me feel. And so that's what I want to do. I want to make sure, my grandkids might not know, well, Papa Rude told me this, told me that. But hopefully they can look at me and say, Papa Rude made me feel this way. And so that's what, obviously I love doing the political work and helping people. And so I'm going to continue to do that. But obviously I'm building it in as I can uh, make sure I accommodate all those other things that I've worked so hard to allow the time to do.
That's awesome stuff. Now, let's get into the lighter side of stuff. You are an Atlanta Braves super fan. Is this gonna be the year the Braves finally win it all again?
You know, well, and my work should have been last year too. I mean, we had a tremendous team. We've got a really good start, but the season is really long,
Long season.
obviously. But what is so weird about baseball is you play all these games and then you get to the playoffs and it
A
kind of
whole other season.
just everything. And as you know, last couple of years, it's always the wild card people that advance.
Yep.
So yes, we're coming back again this year. Gonna be the top of our game, and we got the offense. Now we got to find some. The pitching's got to be a little sharpened up a little bit, but yeah, gonna be the year of the Braves, and every year is the year of the dogs. So University of Georgia will be back.
Is this the year for Georgia football with Nick Saban retired now?
I never. It's just imprinted on my mind. We got a little 7-year-old grandson, and when for some reason my daughter was videoing it when my son-in-law told him that Nick Saban retired.
Oh my
And
god.
he went nuts. He's like, "Yes, he's gone. Yes,
Really?
yes, yes." It was, I don't know. I would rather beat him while he's there. I don't blame him for retiring though, kind of slowing down his life some. But yes, I think he is a legend, and obviously he just knows how to win. Yeah.
And a great leader. I think one of the things that Nick Saban doesn't get enough credit for is you don't win all of those championships and put all those teams together if you're not a good leader.
Well, and I know we talk about light things, but that's something that I tell people. Y- y- to be successful, you got to be built to win.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people, they want to win, they think they can win, but if you're not built to win, and I think that was one of the things that was really the focus of my team at ACC is we wanted to win, and everything we did was pointing toward building and having the opportunity to win.
Final question. You're batting cleanup for the Atlanta Braves. What's your walk-up song?
Oh gosh, I love being at the games and hearing that. I don't know what it's like at other stadiums, but when the opponents step up, our piano guy gets to he kind of plays things that play up their names or their background or whatever to make it a little more of a parody type thing. I don't know. I think it would probably be a blend of my gay fan base and what I love to do there. And there's a song called "It's Saturday Night,"
Okay.
and I don't know who plays it, but I hear it all the time when I'm at a Georgia game. But it's Saturday, so it's time for football. I don't know, a little bit of blend of football and baseball. Uh, I did get to do that last November after the season. I got invited to come and do batting practice on the field.
Oh
And
my
that was
God.
no walk up music, but it was an amazing experience
That's
to do
awesome.
that.
Yeah. Well, this has been a great conversation, Rudy, full of tremendous insights. Just so much to be absorbed and learn from you. I'll end with this in case I haven't said it enough. I want to thank you for being a great colleague, a great friend, and yes, might I even say a great mentor. I'm wishing you nothing but success in your new venture and to an outstanding career. I mean, just full of successes. Might I venture to give you some advice? A book might be in your future, and I'm happy to edit it if you need some help there. So even
Yeah.
maybe even be your ghostwriter. But seriously, thank you for everything, and thank you to everybody for listening. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you're on Apple Music, give us a 5-star rating. And until next time, keep on listening. Thanks, Rudy.
Thank you, Josh.
When I'm lost and I just can't see the path before me, a melody cries out like a beacon I can hear but can't see. So